In response to the recent terror attacks in New Orleans, Louisiana, I wanted to do something to give back, to provide hope, to do something to support individuals who were impacted by this crisis, as well as many others. And so, for many of you who don't know, New Orleans is very near and dear to my heart. It's like a second home to me. I was actually in New Orleans last month doing an EMDR, a 5-day intensive EMDR basic training, and I was there last summer doing another EMDR basic training. So I love New Orleans. I go there a couple times a year. And I was just devastated by what happened. And I was thinking, what can I do to give back? So, what I decided to do between myself and talking to a member of my team, decided to do an EMDR, not, excuse me, not an EMDR. We decided to do a CID and ATIP crisis response training. So, the training is entitled Nola Matters, and it is critical incident desensitization, so CID, and acute traumatic incident processing, that's ATIP, crisis response training. And so the training is amazing. I've done this training before, and I wanted to do this in response to what happened recently in New Orleans because I know there's a lot going on. And really, the goal is about preventing PTSD. That's really what we're trying to do, to reduce the impact of this traumatic incident. And for anybody else who is involved in crisis response, this may be something you want to think about. So let's get into it. The dates, what this is going to look like, who's eligible, costs, all this stuff. So number one, the training is this Sunday, January the 5th, 2025. It's from 4 to 6 p.m. Central Standard Time. It will be a Zoom training, so it's a virtual training. So you will register on Eventbrite. I'll link below how to get signed up. I will say these seats are going to go quick because I'm having limited seating. But again, I'm doing this training, so people have been waiting on me to do this training, so I'm going to do it. So I am the trainer, and then my coach for this training is going to be Rebecca Cecila, who is an amazing individual. We are both EMDR trained and trauma informed and all those wonderful things. And so I'm really looking forward to this training. Things to keep in mind. Now, typically CID ATIP training is $100 or more. Now, because of what's happening right now, the current events and other things that have happening in the world, I'm going to provide this training for free. Rebecca has also donated her time, these 2 hours, to do this training for free. So we are doing this for free. However, because we did have to kind of set this up last minute, there are no continuing education credits for this training, but you will receive a certificate of completion after the training is done. And I'll just say right up front, this training is worth it. It really is worth it. I've used CID and ATIP as crisis response. And sometimes if we can get in and do these types of crisis responses, we may not need to do further intervention like EMDR and therapy, additional therapy later, if we can get right in and do some of these crisis response. And so again, I'm going to be talking about the CID protocol, who developed it, all the stuff you can use it for. But as you can see here, you can use it for accidents, tornadoes, floods, earthquakes, fires, assault, COVID, all kinds of stuff. And what we found, if we can get in early, again, the name of the game is to prevent PTSD. That's really what we're trying to do. So we got CID and then acute traumatic intervention protocol. I'm going to talk more about what's the difference between CID and ATIP, how to do them in the training. I'm also, I think, to have this discussion, we got to talk about stress. So what is stress in general? What are the different types of stress? What are some ways that stress can negatively impact the body? I am an employee assistance program therapist, working with the DEA and a bunch of other companies. And so how does stress show up in the body? So we need to talk about just what is stress. And then also, what is trauma, right? What is trauma? What does that look like? And what's the difference between stress and trauma, right? Because they're different. What are some of the different types of trauma? Because there are different types of trauma, right? So we'll be talking about that. And how can untreated trauma negatively impact the body? We talk about the body keeps the score and a bunch of other things. So what are some of the things that can happen as a result of trauma going untreated? We're also going to talk about acute stress disorder, as well as post-traumatic stress disorder. A lot of people know PTSD, but there's something that comes before that, acute stress disorder. And so again, like I said, we're trying to prevent PTSD. So what is the difference between the two? How do we know when we're dealing with what? So we'll talk about that. Again, I'm also going to share the protocols for CID ATIP. We're going to go through that. You'll be well versed in what that looks like, how to use it. We may even get a live demo in. We'll see, maybe a video. We'll see kind of how it goes. I'm also going to talk about some different ways to administer CID and ATIP. You can do it with eye movements. We can do it with tapping. You can do it with audio, scribbles. I mean, there's so many ways that you can do this. And I do want to share that CID and ATIP are not EMDR. Okay, so you don't have to be EMDR trained, this sort of thing, to do CID and ATIP. These are separate deals. Lots of people can get trained in it. That's why I'm doing this training. Okay, but there are lots of ways to do it. We'll also have practice time where you will be paired with someone and you'll get the opportunity to practice CID and ATIP. So you'll get an opportunity to do that. Also, what if you try to do CID or ATIP and it's not working? Things don't go well, or it seems like this person needs more support than you're able to give just with basic CID and ATIP training. What are some things you can do? So we'll talk about resources and supports that you can offer, but we're also going to talk about one of the things that you could utilize if you wanted to get additional training, or maybe you're already trained in EMDR. This is one of the things that we can utilize that's been evidence-based to treat PTSD. It's kind of the gold standard. It's something I've been using for years. It's called eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. The other thing that's really cool about this training is that I'm actually an MDRI approved EMDR trainer. So I offer EMDR basics trainings through EMDR consulting. So I do in-person virtual trainings, 5-day, 2-part. I am also an EMDR approved consultant and EMDR certified therapist. In addition, Rebecca, who is going to be coaching for me on this training, is an MDRIA approved consultant and EMDR certified therapist. So we can both speak to our experience being trained CID, ATIP, but also EMDR. And how do you know when to use what? How do you know when this is out of the realm of CID, ATIP, and I might need to use something stronger? I might need to look at some other things. I'm going to go through the 8 phases and 3 stages of EMDR. Again, any trauma-informed therapy, they're going to have 3 stages. So we'll talk about what this looks like specifically for EMDR and things like that. And the other piece of this, sometimes when I'm doing CID or ATIP, I get the vibe, okay, we've kind of worked on this, but there's also an understanding that this person may need some additional support. So I might want to refer them out or look at helping them and get some additional services, because there's also a lot of other stuff that kind of came up with that. And so how do we kind of think about that, conceptualize that? So I'll talk a bit about that. I will also leave time at the end to answer your questions that you all may have. I love to do Q&A. So let's talk about who's eligible. Let's talk about who's eligible to attend this training. So for this particular training, I wanted to kind of do it like we do for our EMDR approved trainings. Again, this is not an EMDR training, but I wanted to kind of leave it at that level of knowledge, because I'm going to be talking about like dissociation and trauma and some other things. So I want to make sure everybody is kind of at that level to be having these conversations and things like that. So I'm going to be integrating some additional things that sometimes I don't always talk about as I'm doing this training. Okay, but I'm going to add in some extra pieces that I think will be really important, particularly in the crisis that's happened now and responding to other crises. So independently licensed mental health professionals, so qualifying doctors, registered nurses, mental health professionals who have degrees in counseling, marriage and family therapy, psychology, social work, psychiatry, that are independently licensed through their state of providence. Also, if you're pre-licensed, so you're working under the leadership, supervision of another clinician. So you're kind of in that associate level, pre-license level, that'll work as well. Also, graduate students. And I think this is important, especially now, if you're a first year grad student, you just got in, this is not going to be a training for you, because the way I'm going to be teaching it. This is more for individuals who are definitely seeking a mental health degree, counseling, MFT, psychology, psychiatry, any of these things. And you're at the point where you're in practicum, right? So you've entered practicum, you've got your core classes out of the way. So you're kind of in this realm where you'll be able to use it right away as you jump back in practicum. So That's who I'm really teaching this for. Okay. So those are the individuals. If you have questions, you can always email me. I'm going to give my email information at the end. So I would say sign up now. Seating is going to be limited and it's going to go. And once it's gone, that's it. So at the end, you'll see an opportunity. I'm going to link below the Eventbrite information. So you want to get signed up for that because seating will be limited. I do want to say those in the affected region in New Orleans, specifically those who serve individuals who are licensed, who are practicing in that region, those sorts of things, they will get top priority. So that's going to be important. Again, just in review, this training is this Sunday, January the 5th. You don't want to miss it. We will start at 4 o'clock and we will end by 6. All right, 6. I'm notorious. I want to start on time. We're going to end on time. We're going to do what we got to do and we're going to get up out of here. And you're going to learn some amazing stuff in the process. This is a virtual training. It will be conducted via Zoom. After you sign up, you may be asked some qualifying questions or things like that. I'm not sure how I want to do that part yet. But you'll see it in there once you get to that part. In terms of how do you sign up, the link is through Eventbrite. Okay. So you'll sign up through Eventbrite. As I shared, there may be some additional eligibility criteria. I don't think this is going to be an issue. Just want to make sure that everybody there who does attend is supposed to attend. Okay. Again, I hope to see you all there. I'm really excited about this training. I have been trained in CID ATIP like 7 years or so. Amazing training is something that I use a lot. Sometimes I'm able to use this and I don't have to use some of these other things. The other cool thing about CID and ATIP, it doesn't have to be my client. So I can respond to crises and I have. It could be a loved one or a neighbor or somebody I just walk up on at the mall or some other locations, or let's say I was in New Orleans. I could go there and provide crisis intervention to individuals. This is not therapy, but I can provide crisis response for these individuals. CID, ATIP, try to prevent the establishment of PTSD, right? Try to prevent that, right? And they don't have to be my client and I don't have to have a follow-up. So that's the cool thing about it. But let's say it was somebody who I wanted to link up with or somebody that we identified as they might need more support. Well, I can also provide them with additional supports in the area, that sort of thing, link them up to services. The main thing is we want to prevent it, try to catch it early. Early intervention is the best. Again, I was devastated by what happens in New Orleans, and I'm just trying to reach out, trying to figure out what I can do to be of support. I'm excited about it. I hope to see you all there. This training is going to be the bomb.com. I don't put on no half time, no half show. It's going to be amazing. I'm excited about Rebecca joining me on this. If you have any questions about this upcoming training in terms of like what it's going to look like, or are you eligible or anything, or maybe you can attend this one, but you'd like for me to maybe provide a training for your organization, whether that be in person or virtually, or some other question you have, you can always email me. That's the best way to reach me. My first and last name, Jessica Crunkleton, EMDR at gmail.com. That's the best way to reach me. Like I said, I'm looking forward to it. Hope to see you all there. We're going to have an amazing time. We're going